Something we completely forgot. We were supposed to do some feedback business also and put up the QR code. So we're going to do that first. And we missed out on the first one completely. So there's a QR code that's coming up, but it has to come up, I think, on the full screen. There. If you could please give your feedback on both the sessions, the first Udbodhan and the second Vartalap. It'll be great. Thank you so much. While you all are at that, and again to respect time, we're going to move on with our Chopal. But before we go on to the Chopal, actually we have to give about 10 minutes time to Mr. Anand Lakshman. And where are you? Yes, there you are, right? So Anand is a physician and a public health entrepreneur. He's the founder and CEO of AddressHealth, which is a provider for school health services. So over to you, Anand. After 10 minutes, we'll grab the stage and I'll have my other two speakers also join. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everybody on the panel. So today is all about skills for the future, etc. So I was thinking a little bit about the agricultural economy which was there in place before we know the world as it stands now, the industrial economy. And then in the agricultural economy, what was the work cycle like, right? People used to work when they needed to plow their fields and they needed to, when the rains were there, they had to work harder. And then when it was time to relax, they would relax and there would be culture and literature and all of those things. Then we moved into this era where we needed to be time bound, we needed to be 9 to 5, we needed to tie up the workforce into a particular type of working, and then that is what we know as work. My thinking on this topic with regards to jobs and things, I am not even sure if when we are talking about skills and future skills and all of that, I think we are not even sure if jobs will exist the way we think of jobs, because we have thinking of jobs as 9 to 5 jobs, paying a particular rate per hour or per week and things like that. And then why people work? What is the motivation to work, right? It's money, but then what do you do with the money? So all of this has deep influence in terms of where we are to go with life in general. So I don't know if you have to talk about livelihood skills or we have to talk about life skills, or even beyond life skills, are we to talk about, what are the kind of skills. So I wanted to just say that for me, the biggest skill going forward for children in the future would actually be a skill to say no. And that would be the refusal skill. So I want to talk about a bit about refusal skills, because when we deal with teaching children about getting them ready for the world outside, about simple things like, smoking, what are the motivations for smoking, what makes a child take it up. It's very difficult because we talk about the science, we talk about the ill effects of tobacco and things like that. But we really do not prepare the child in terms of being able to say no. It could be with smoking, it could be with a sexual encounter, it could be with a kind of habit that you are building which could lead to health outcomes. So going back into the future, first thing I want to think about is, are we going to be doing jobs? And after jobs, are we going to have culture and literature? For example, AI, everybody says AI is going to take jobs away. My fear is AI is going to take creativity away. Because if you don't have jobs, what will you do with your time, right? Usually people in the agriculture economy wrote songs, love songs, and wrote about the birds and the bees and all those things and painted pictures. Now we won't have jobs, we won't have 9 to 5 jobs, and we won't have culture and literature to fall back on. And what then will denote good health? Okay, we'll have longevity. Medical science will ensure that there will be longevity. But what do we do with that long life? How do we lead a healthy life? What skills do we need to be able to? And I want to build it into no skills and yes skills. And the no skills are the refusal skills, the ability to say no to food, because we have already a lot of food that's available. Like yesterday is a good case in point. It's very difficult to say no to the gulab jamun. But, and then a set of yes skills, right? Like physical activity, right? It's so difficult, especially in the era of the mobile phone, to actually be able to say no to the mobile phone and get into a physical activity. So I would say that we need to think in terms of, health, in terms of what will people do with their time and with their lives, and how do we build the necessary skills that can ensure good health and longevity, which is not only medical technology driven, which is driven by basic principles of human values. That is, how are you going to lead your life? What are you going to do with it? And those are elements that we want to bring into healthy living, building those skills with children, making sure children are able to tackle these future questions with regard to being able to handle some of these issues. I want to bring one statistic before I end. There's a study done in Australia which shows, this is only males data was available for big long-term analysis, and it shows that ideally 24 to 27 hours a week is where you have the best health outcomes. Anything more than 27 hours, your health outcomes start to deteriorate. Anything less than 24 hours a week, your health outcomes start to deteriorate. And the study shows, and this is from the Australian pension scheme, so there's a huge amount of data, and it shows anybody who works more than 50 hours a week is worse than anybody who doesn't work in terms of health outcomes. Okay, anybody who works more than 50 hours is worse than anybody who doesn't work. 24 to 27 hours of work is what is the ideal health outcomes. Below that, above that, there are dropping health outcomes. So it's like a bell curve. And put this into context of future skills, future AI, and what will people do with their free time, and how will that contribute to what they are thinking, right? Like today I want to do a painting, I go to Canva or something like that, and I say, can you do this? And in 2 minutes I have a painting ready. So all that effort about dreaming up a poem. I used to write a poem for every single batchmate of mine in medical school. I wrote about 150 poems. And now my friends all go up to generative AI and put all the stuff in, and they get it. So now I've run out of business. With that, I'll come to an end on this. But just to summarize from my end, I think we are not thinking, we're thinking of job skills, but I think it's going to be beyond that in terms of what do you do with your life skills, and what do you do with your life skills to what you define as good health. Right? So longevity is kind of assured because doctors will put pipes into you and make you survive. Be sure about that. We have the wherewithal to put as many pipes as possible to make you survive. But what do you do with your life, and what do you consider healthy, and what skills do you need to combat all the AI and all the technology that surround you to still maintain your, basic consciousness and your basic, what you stand as a human being, and being able to perform that as a healthy adult. That is what we should focus on. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just need some chairs. 2 more chairs. 3 more chairs, actually. So one could be mine. Yeah.
A lot of paper.
But a lot of paper.
One more.
A few of us could stand actually.
I've got
No,
restless legs now, so yeah. So I'm gonna stand.
Oh, we are done. We are done. And we need both the mics. And the other mic. Please fill up that mic. Okay, so we're going to continue with the Chopal. Okay, we just had to give some time to Anand. Can I please invite Sachin Vats, please come and have a seat. And also Debashish, Mr. Debashish Chakravarty. Please sit down. Yeah, come, whichever ways, come. Anand, you were sitting here. So I really don't want this to be a disturbance. Yes, please just sit there. Aditi, you can please sit there. I'm not going to be sitting. Except that there's a mess, but you can sit. So I thought what Anand said was really, really interesting. So before I go back with my first question to Anand, I'm going to first introduce my panel. A brief introduction has already been made of Anand. I also have with me Mr. Sachin Vats. Sachin is the founder, director of Gurukul, the school, Ghaziabad. I can vouch for it. He's doing a brilliant job, a school with a difference. We also have Mr. Debashish Chakravarty, who is the principal of the Kulish School, Jaipur. So welcome to this Chopal. And I must put on records that we were doing the usual fireside and all till Anand wrote, can we do something that's more interesting? And then we changed everything to the Chopal and the Udbodhan and the Vartalap. So thank you for giving that suggestion to us. Coming back to you, Anand. I thought you had some great ideas. And in all this race of, making a living and doing something with a difference and stuff that we spoke about, I think what's really getting sacrificed, even at the school front, is healthy living. Simple skills of how do you live healthy. So would you like to tell all of us as educators, what is it that we should do once we go back to our school, where this should become probably one of the most important things that we should address? How do we teach our children to live healthy? Simple as ABC.
Yeah, so thank you very much. So India is a country of great paradoxes. So we have undernutrition and overnutrition existing in the same school. So I have data from millions of schools, including from Sachin's school, where we see that, we have children who are undernourished, children who are obese at the same time. So it's very difficult to define what exactly will be healthy, but we have to put few things in place. First thing I think is the school environment and its physical environment and the mental and psychosocial environment that we are talking about. And this will come about only if, the management, the principal, the teachers and the school children, everybody is on board with regards to thinking what does this school environment constitute and, how are we going to make it a healthy place. From there, good health is all about behaviors. And behaviors are about right attitudes. We call it values, beliefs, practices. So knowledge is something that is, yes, knowledge also is in short supply, because again, we have the challenge that we have a generation of parents who grew up very differently, and for them to support children with that kind of adequate knowledge, right? Like I have a daughter in class 11. So I don't know what is the right time to explain to my daughter about how to wear a condom. I don't know if class 11 is the right one or is 10 the right place. And I'm a bit hesitant whether I should be the one talking about it, right? So knowledge is definitely an aspect, but I would say, look at the whole value, belief, practice model, and then look at how we can integrate these healthy behaviors with, minimal time in the classroom, because we are expecting children to do quite a lot. But at the end of the day, if they're going to have great lives, they're going to have like millionaire careers ahead of them, but they're going to spend most of it on the healthcare system, then it's not of much use. So the school environment, both physical and psychosocial, followed by a focus on building the right, bit of the knowledge base so that you don't get knowledge wrong, but then focus on behaviors and how do you consistently build consistently good health behaviors. That would be the...
Great. And I think personally, when it comes to good health, and you spoke about, the students in the school, I think it's very important to even touch on parents, because somewhere down the line, you spoke about physical health. So physical activity brings in good health. Parents don't give that as a priority. So I think as educators, as teachers, bringing the parents on board is also equally important, just to add a little. Yeah, teachers too. I know. If you're going to be role models, if you're going to and then at least don't be negative if you can't really add to it. So there are so many. So let me just get on with our Chopal. The topic is about aligning education and industry skills. So my first, I want to pick your brains on that, Sachin. So when you are planning your curriculum and designing, tell me truly, are we really keeping the workforce skills in mind? Are we so futuristic? Do we really put in that conscious effort that let me design my curriculum keeping the workforce skills that are needed in future to align it with my curriculum? Do you really do that?
Thank you for this question, ma'am. Good afternoon to one and all present here. The perception is normally schools don't.
Right.
But the reality is if we go a little deep into what we do every day in the school, we'll find innumerable number of such activities which we do, which probably go unnoticed. But it all depends on the philosophy of the school. If you embrace the growth mindset, then probably you will not focus on so-called marks and the high grades. But if you have a fixed mindset, then the epicenter is going to be, I have to perform and have to be labeled as the most good school in the city, probably, just based on those parameters. So having said this, the challenge for a school is to communicate the right message to the community. Yes, every school, take the example of the morning prayer. The morning prayers are in the school. The value we are teaching children is gratitude, thankfulness, and probably something which is justifying your existence on this planet. But if it is done as a ritual, then, okay, fine, we come in the morning, we attend the prayer, and we go back. But this teacher, who has such an important role to play, if she makes it a point that every opportunity is taken as an opportunity to train children for a skill. And I can give you a lot of examples. But just, I know we have limited time, but I'll just touch base upon 2-3 more. Take example of a small class test or even a board result. How are you making your child respond to that outcome in terms of happiness, in terms of making it such a routine that children understand that every failure has to be accepted in a particular way and every success has to be embraced in a particular way. Reacting and overreacting may lead to creating of an attitude which might hamper you when you go to the real world. So let's understand between school and the real industry, there's something called higher education. So if we are ensuring right from the first day of the school and the school leadership is making every teacher in the school understand that what is the culture we want to create in the school. How are we making that framework or the curriculum document, decoding it, detailing it, making the why, what and how clear to every teacher, and also not forgetting the parent back home. Because if they are sometimes influenced by the peer pressure, चाचा का लड़का वहाँ उस स्कूल में जाता है, उसके नंबर आ रहे हैं, और मेरे दोस्त का तो ये है, उन्होंने तो टेबल्स करा दिए और इस बच्चे को अभी तक नहीं आया, क्या स्कूल है, रॉन्ग डिसीजन, मनी इज नॉट अ प्रॉब्लम, लेट्स चेंज द स्कूल. In 10 seconds they decide that this school is not doing good. But as leaders, as directors, as principals, as decision makers, if we are able to understand that the curriculum, nobody wants that this school should not do good. But if we really want our school to good, the only way it will happen is communication, 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 and taking every stakeholder into the loop, ma'am.
So I'm glad that you spoke about, yes, I do plan, I do the where and the why and the how. And you know what I really love, Sachin, is I was going to actually stop you when you said exams and marks. And the way the whole nation works, I don't know whether the marks are really going to go out of the window. So let's not really say that, yeah, we've kind of achieved it. But I think what you beautifully said is, when I get my marks, how do I handle it? In that also there's a skill. Yes. Because in industry also there is success
Absolutely.
and failure. So I thought that was a beautiful point that you brought out. Thank you. And we will take a few questions later so that you could speak a little bit more about it. So coming to you, Debashish, right? So how do you really ensure that there is a continuous adapting of the curriculum to meet the changing industry demands? So you have to keep adapting to your curriculum. And more important than that, because a little bit of adaptability he spoke about, are we really doing something in our classes to mitigate a condition where we may fail to teach the industry skills to the children? Because even today, I think we are failing there to a large extent. So how do we manage that condition? Do we do something around to teach that resilience to our children? So what do you do? Yeah.
And thank you for the question, ma'am. I think I'll take a step back and talk about the 2 or 3 things which the speakers, and since morning we have been talking about in this panel. I think one thing we all agree on is that education is about changing behavior, and behavior is coming in big way, right? However, there's another thing we agree on, that there is a communication issue about education and classroom. And how do we communicate? We communicate through statistics and numbers. We talk statistics about job market, we talk statistics about marks, we are talking communication of quality through marks. And I think between the cup and the lip, that's the slip. Because quality gets translated into marks, and marks don't often communicate. So this is where I think the teacher comes in the picture. This is why the teacher has not yet been replaced by AI. Had it been a binomial system, we would have been replaced. But it's not that. So where is the gap coming in? I think the gap is coming in because in our search for marks, we forget that it might also require a problem-solving attitude, right? And that attitude development is perhaps one of the key things we need to teach our children. I remember during my very early days after JNU, when I went to NID, one of my mentors was MP Ranjan, a great industrial designer. And he used to constantly tell us that, if you want to actually look at a sustainable future, you need to first understand the design process. And design process, I think, is at the heart of 21st century education. How do you do research and what is research? Beginning with that to finding out what is the problem and therefore what is the pain point in any issue. And then going into a design brainstorming. And but people think that design education comes only after school. It's not true. It comes from nursery. That is where design education needs to be embedded. And that is where the real communication takes place, because all of us who are parents here and who are, who have dealt with children know that well-being is one of the key issues parents look for in nursery classes or, early childhood classes. And if we can start communicating with parents there that it is not the statistics and the marks, but it is about finding solutions, it is about design practice, that is when I think we are bridging gaps. And these are the parents. And parents are an issue, aren't we? We are all parents, we are all teachers, and we got educated in the last century. We are teaching skills for the next century, and there is a century in between, which we are living in. And that's also a communication problem, because our desires are driven by the past century's norms and the previous industrial revolution. So when we are talking about communication, I think one of the key things that we are trying to understand is that how do we create children who are going to be vocal about green jobs, who are going to have advocacy skills. I think that's one key skill, which is a gap. The second gap is design thinking. If we can train our children into an attitude of problem solving, I think we have done a large amount of the job which our education system can then take forward.
I want to add one thing, ma'am, if you permit.
Yeah, please.
Because in the morning when Ravi was speaking, he said, can we give some actionable points? And my effort is going to be, if something can be taken away, if you feel, because I have seen this working in my school, and what we do as an institution, keeping in mind the skills for the future. And normally in a public school, ours is a day school, and we have a student strength of more than 2,500 with us. I particularly feel that normally schools have a house system. A, B, C house. And normally, if you understand how house works, there is always a cock house competition, these kind of competitions, and people work like that. But sometimes it robs a student from an opportunity who's a prodigy could be. So if you do not have a very transparent system. So what we introduce in our school, if it can help the educators sitting here, we abolished the house system from our school. We created every section as a house and a class teacher as a house warden. And new students coming to the school, old students, anyone in that, for that matter, if they are in the school, from the beginning, there is a policy that has been shared with all the students that you will get a fair chance to have an intra-section competition. then an inter-class competition, and anybody who clears inter-class would be made part of the school team. And if you have to represent school, then only school team will be allowed to participate. Now, what is happening? Skills, opportunities. You have a debating club, you have a debating team, you have a dance team, you have a quiz team. So children know heartburns. ये तो मैम का फेवरेट है, ये तो उनको जानता है. So all these things vanished.
So I think when we're talking about skills, I'm so glad you're bringing about, between the two of you, he spoke a lot about, design thinking and whatever. You're speaking actually a lot about competition. When you say, even if it is section-wise, there's a little bit of competition that comes in. So I think it's all about an amalgamation of a lot of skills, from collaboration to competition, because even to say, oh, it's the age of collaboration, and you throw competition out of the window, I think it doesn't work. So I think, where do we bridge all that gap is something that I'm hearing about.
Yes, because see, what we are doing, when they are going to go to the real world, they have to face this challenge.
Exactly.
Rejections. Rejection, and
That's
sometimes
very
children don't
important.
understand because
So
they're so pampered in the childhood.
I
They don't
appreciate
understand
that, because we have to be connected to the real world, and real world is all this, and there are many children who are really breaking down. When we were talking about healthy living and job pressures, children cannot really manage that. I'm so glad that all these points are actually coming out for people to then assimilate and take it forward in their schools. I'm so happy. Coming back to you, we'll just take a little bit of time, because we, in respect of time, I'd like to take a few questions actually. So if we can make it short. What about assessment of these skills? Because the NCRF new document also that came up yesterday talks about assessment of even vocational skills. So, and without assessment, you don't get your credit points. So how do you assess? Is it possible to assess? Or are we talking about some utopian situation?
Is this for me, ma'am? All right, great. So, see, assessments and measuring all these outcomes of the future of skills is something which the educator who is with the child must realize that it's my responsibility to ensure that incrementally, if I progress, how am I doing this formative analysis of this child? Because who better than this person who is with the child day in, day out knows about it. And then bridging the gap between home and school, especially in the middle school, and then way forward to the outcome, the exit level of the school. But this national credit framework, I have gone through it yesterday because I had to be in this panel. Trust me, friends, it's an amazing document. Amazing document. It is giving us so many solutions. We were feeling that, oh, how would we change the mindset of the people when they have a stigma for vocational education? When they have a stigma, oh, only these major subjects would make him IITian. Rest of the things doesn't matter. So they have given a fantastic description of 1200 hours and the 4 credit points to 30 hours, notional to all those subjects. This is so beautiful. And all people, if they, because we always were looking for a solution from the government, that end of the day, please permit us to moderate our assessments and let's focus on learning. So I think this is a fantastic document. There's the answer to it. And besides that, ma'am, of course, the project-based learning. And one thing which I have recently introduced, I learned it from Japan, by the way, on my visit to Japan, internships. This internships is happening big time. And let me tell you what kind of internship within the school community. Why can't we ask our children to be at the front office for 2 days and learn how to manage the visitors? Why can't they be in the cafeteria? Why can't they be at the security gate sometimes to see? Dispersal during the transport system. And if all of us can design these kind of innovative activities and ensure that, fine, we'll say 4 day of internship or 2 day of internship compulsory, all the sections middle school or maybe senior school. The learning is going to be immense, and you can always come back and see that the feedback, there's an automatic questionnaire, or maybe we use technology to capture the data and see how they're doing it.
Right. Okay, so though personally I have a difference of opinion on the NCRF document, but we'll leave it for later. We have a discussion later. And but I loved your point when you said about assessment being made by the teacher, honestly to be done, And I think there comes the point, which we can discuss off the stage, is teacher training on that kind of assessment. Because those skills to be assessed have a different, skill set completely. But yes, it is possible to assess and we can assess. Coming to you, Debashish. So we are here, you only mentioned that last century, this century and the next, okay? So I think we need to be extremely intuitive because we don't know even today what are the skills that are needed by the industry tomorrow. So how do you think as an educator, are you kind of predicting what should I teach in my class today? Because today we may be talking about a skill which is not going to be relevant to the child when he comes into the workforce tomorrow. So as an educator, do you predict? Do you take in your intuitive skills? Are we going to be talking about the blink of Malcolm Gladwell? So where is it? How do you get that intuition from?
Ma'am, I think continuing from what we just talked about, I think somewhere your assessment and your planning needs to account for the reality that we are living in. And one of the challenges which we face in the education system is that most of our job-related assessments are norm-referenced. Whereas when you are talking skills, you need criterion referenced assessment systems. And between these two, you'll have to figure things out. Now, when you are talking about how do you decide what to do? And that is where I think, I strongly think that, all the skill sets that are derived out of the concerns of the present century should become somewhere the foundation principles to judge what we, what we are going to look at. So let me give you an example. ESPAS 2023 report, which is talking about the European Union's concerns for the future, for example, brings together a very interesting point, net zero economy and well-being. It also talks about advocacy. The fear of losing democracy as a system of governance itself. Now, what should we therefore teach in the class? I think one of the things we need to therefore teach in the classroom is how do you decide what is truth? I mean, it's an old Platonic principle, but it's still valid today. Because we have echo chambers of news, people are not reading or getting interested in news at all. So in this echo chamber system, what is the real understanding of future? How do we know that? That is where I think driving students to do their own research, make them enter the field themselves through the process of design thinking is very, very important. Similarly, well-being. What is well-being? 28 hours? I think the government tells us 43 hours. RTE tells us 43 hours minimum working time for students, working time for teachers. As employers, what do we do? Where do we put our ball in?
Doctors were not taken into confidence then.
It was not. No, I understand. So I'm saying that is where the gap is, isn't it? What we are talking about is reality and normative reality. What should be done and what is being done. And it is in this gap that education needs to fit in. We are all talking about these gaps. And similarly, when we are talking about well-being, we need to begin well-being from ground zero, farm to table. Avocados are not on in certain seasons in certain tables. But just because it's available, should it be there? Is guacamole the thing of the day? It's not. So, actually making children, so you can do trough farming, you can do drip water farming in a closed classroom. You don't need to go outside the room. Can the students grow watercress and put it on a sandwich? Farm to table. Can we teach that in our classroom? We can do that in nursery. We can do that in KG. It's possible. So that is where I think creative thinking from educators, education managers, disruptive thinking, even from parents, I think all these needs to be brought to the table. The parents are a very, very critical ingredient in this mix. For every teacher of 25 students, you have 2 parents per student, right? And they are spending more time than you are spending with them in the class. So you can bring the disruptive thought. It is going to be taken forward only at home. So, and that is where I think the parents need to be brought to the table and brought to, be a part of the system.
So I think it was a great point that you brought up. And you spoke about it in the first point, and in the second, it's all about the thought process, the research, the design thinking, which I think is a very powerful way to teach children to think, because it is only then that they can be futuristic. And again, I mention the teacher in the class, because if you have to really make your children prepared for tomorrow, are you also adopting that kind of a thinking skill to be able to predict what's going to happen in the future? I think those were some great points. Any questions? We have about a minute or so. Lakshmi, ma'am? Yes. Any questions? Yes, surely, please. Yeah, I think you'll be visible to everyone, ma'am.
My question is very different. If the industry is to make good teachers and the raw materials are our students who don't want to be at all, they want to be entrepreneurs, they want to be leaders, how do we bridge this gap? Our students, at least some of them, to become good teachers so that they can teach well their own kids. Otherwise, this great species will be lost, I guess.
So are we talking about, can we create an ecosystem where there are people who are going to be more interested in becoming teachers?
Yes.
So that we can actually be the ones creating better people. Anyone would like to take
Well,
that question?
so, ma'am, the trend is changing now. I tell you why. Recent example, we hired couple of young boys and girls in our school. So they said that my fellow is a chartered accountant, and he went for his first job, and his take home was somewhere around 45,000 rupees the company gave him. And you are hiring me as a TGT, and you're giving me 72,350 rupees. Yay! I think that's pride. I'm going to spread this word. So incrementally things are changing now, thanks to the government. And of course, see, it is in a school always finance is a crisis, because we have a fixed amount of hike permitted by the government, and finance we do consider. But the only way forward is that this feel that I am changing life, as somebody was mentioning in this session also, this teaching profession is दीवानगी, और जिनके अंदर हम ये दीवानगी पैदा कर पाए ना, तो फिर तो मंजिलें मिलती जाती है. तो I'm sure there are दीवाने in 140 crore people in this country, so it will not be dearth of teachers, I'm sure.
Okay, we'll take that one question from there.
Add on to what you're saying and to respond to your question, if I may. In the 6th century BC, our good old Panini of the Ashtadhyayi wrote in one of his humorous sutras that the young people nowadays are too loud. They think they know too much. They don't really want to study, and I'm worried who's going to teach. And yet here we are. And there will always be 5,000 years.
So the Divangi
There's
existed,
always a calling. It's
and the
not a
best part
profession.
is this Divangi is going to grow, because I completely agree with Sachin. There are more young people, I think, coming in and wanting to make a difference. So it's all about the passion. So I think we've all kind of ended up thinking about more conscious schools, continuously adapting, design thinking, being passionate, making things with a difference. And I think the most important, our health. The most important thing is at the bottom of everything, if we are healthy, there's all that we can achieve. So thank you so much to a very, very beautiful panel with great discussion. Thank you. No, yes, no, I'm not. I must add that our